Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Los Angeles Rams Insider Podcast. I'm your host and beat writer, Brock Vieira. You can check out all of our work at www.si.com/NFL/Rams/on-SI, where we drop double-digit pieces of content every single day to get you through, of course, this off season. With the off season, there's always news going around. There's a lot of changes that happen, and the biggest one happened today on Sunday, February 1st, and that is, of course, the Arizona Cardinals hiring former Los Angeles Rams offensive coordinator Michael LaFleur to be their new head coach. Of course, LaFleur was the offensive coordinator for the Rams from 2023 to 2025, where Kyron Williams had three straight seasons of 1,000 yards, and Puka Nacua had one of the best starts to a fifth round wide receiver's career in NFL history. There's a lot that went into this move. Of course, the Cardinals were interested in Clint Kubiak, the Seahawks offensive coordinator, but it seems that Kubiak is more interested in the Raiders job. Anthony Capinal, the Jaguars defensive coordinator, was an interested party, but ended up going back to Jacksonville. So it appeared that it was going to come down to LaFleur, Raheem Morris, Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver, and kind of around that group. LaFleur was a front runner for a while once the candidates started to kind of separate themselves. And of course, Morris took the 49ers defensive coordinator job in out there in San Francisco. So it's LaFleur. It was LaFleur all the way, if not Kubiak. This move is an interesting one because, of course, LaFleur remains in the division. He'll play the Rams twice a year. He'll play the 49ers twice a year. And, of course, not only did he work with Morris during his time with Los Angeles, he also was a long-time assistant under Kyle Shanahan as well, only leaving the 49ers to take the New York Jets offensive coordinator job when Robert Saleh was hired for that role uh, after the 2020 season. LaFleur's done a lot since his time with the Jets, and he's done a lot to repair his reputation. Unfortunately, because of the New York media market and the lack of success that he had there, there was a lot of negative connotations put on his name. And as time would reveal, none of that was really his fault. He was never given the proper tools to succeed with from the start, and the tools that he was given that were actually good tools ended up developing very well under his tutelage. Aaron Rodgers, of course, wasn't there when LaFleur was there. LaFleur was instead working with Zach Wilson. And it seems like he was a casualty to bring in Rodgers, his guys, and of course, Nathaniel Hackett as offensive coordinator. And that ended up blowing up even worse than whatever happened during LaFleur's time in New York. In the meantime, as mentioned, he had tremendous amount of success with the Rams, is a well respected figure in the building. I mean, look at that earlier Cardinals game, the trip down to Arizona, the one game in which we know for sure he had a tremendous influence in play calling because Sean McVay was sick that week. They blew the Cardinals out of the water. What I really enjoy about his offense is that, unlike the McVay offense, there's a proper balance to it in run and pass where he gets from that Shanahan scheme. And that allows the pass game to be much more effective. If there's any negative issues with the Rams passing attack this year, is that when they felt overtly confident, they would become arrogant in their operation, arrogant in their play calling, and it would lead to a worse product. The Rams are at their best when they're using multiple personnel packages, multiple formations, and multiple calls between the run and the pass in order to create a product that wasn't predictable, that had to respect certain rules of the offense, that forced defenses to put themselves in positions where they didn't want to be. And despite the fact that Puka Nacua was a player who was getting less volume of targets, he was making more catches because he had more space and opportunity to haul in those passes and targets, which did not lead to a drop in production. Same thing for Devontae Adams. When you start seeing an overt usage of the pass, that's when these issues start to pop up. And that's what LaFleur is going to bring to Arizona. They already have a lot of really exciting talents down there. Paris Johnson Jr., of course, Trey McBride, one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end in the NFL. Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, and we'll see what happens with Kyler Murray. So there's a lot to work with already on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball is just as intriguing. Jonathan Gannon put in a very strong system down there. While it wasn't able to come to fruition in the way in which Gannon would have liked, they were very competitive and kept the Cardinals in a bunch of games that, quite frankly, they had no business being in. The Cardinals, for a long time, have lacked stability from the coaching staff. Jonathan Gannon wasn't that guy, though he was, from most reports, fairly well liked, especially by Kyler Murray. That Imari Demarcado situation really just kind of revealed who he was in the worst times, and I felt at that point they didn't have a rallying cry for the Cardinals to kind of get around. Same thing with Cliff Kingsbury, offensive minded guy, well liked person, but he clearly wasn't the guy to get the Cardinals over the top. Steve Wilkes was fired before he even had an opportunity to do so. You haven't had that opportunity or that coach to take you to a championship level since Bruce Arians, a coach who was robbed of an opportunity to be a head coach for many years for whatever reason. Some of them I know, some that I don't know, and the ones I do know, they're just ridiculous. LaFleur is in a unique position because he comes in as a doubted figure in Arizona because he's going to enter division with Mike McDonald and Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. But to me, I think that this is the perfect pairing for him. There is an understanding of what happens in San Francisco and what happens in Los Angeles that LaFleur has because he's one of the only guys, if not the only guy, except maybe Matthew Harper for a couple months, who has been an assistant in both buildings under Shanahan and McVay. Not only does he have the understanding, he knows how to exploit them. And then when you think about McDonald, well, who's to say he's going to nail the OC hire again like he did with Kubiak last year? Because he failed his first time with Ryan Grubb. And let's be real now, Clint Kubiak was a gift that fell into his lap. He was incredible in New Orleans on a terrible Saints team, but we could all see that he could turn that into a high-powered, potent offense. Of course, he was Kubiak was to take the Seahawks to the next level. There's an opportunity for him here. The Rams, we don't really know where they're going as an organization right now because this was supposed to be the year and they failed. The Seahawks are going to the Super Bowl. But what is going to be the result of whatever happens in that game? And of course, how did they address the offensive side of the ball? San Francisco is already a mess. They have to replace Salah, which they did with Raheem Morris, which means that they're transitioning from a 4-3 system where they run a wide nine base to a 4-3 base defense in which they're going to see a lot of heavy nickel and dime packages. How do you adjust that? On top of that, Kyle Shanahan, though a phenomenal head coach, has yet to get over the hump. There's a lot of pressure growing in San Francisco. And with all three organizations having massive question marks on it, the question marks on Arizona don't seem as big as they might have been in years past. For those reasons alone, I think that LaFleur is going to do wonders in Arizona. I don't know if he'll turn them into a continuous playoff contender. I don't know if they'll be a championship caliber squad. I know for a fact that he's likely not going to have the resources to build a strong super team based off everything the Cardinals have done in the past. But in the same breath, we're talking about a Cardinals team that was what a few years ago the number one team in the NFL in 2021. This was a team that was competing for NFC championship games under Ken Hunt, under Bruce Arians. So there's a lot of potential in the desert for him. I think he's going to do well. The problem is that one of the teams that I think he'll do well against is the Rams. How the Rams handle this situation is going to be very unique. The first things first for them is finding a replacement for LaFleur, which I think is Nate Shieldhouse. One, it's him because it should be him, and secondly, if it's not him, don't be surprised to see Shieldhouse take a job in Seattle. Right? For that point alone, you promote him. But Shieldhouse, though he comes from Iowa State, also has a passing mentality. He was a former quarterback. How is that going to affect the Rams' balance with the run? Something that they already don't do enough of. Then you look at the broader picture. Let's say Arizona starts out hot and they get this thing rolling. And they use their draft picks wisely and they have a team ready to contend. Kyler Murray's healthy. LaFleur's in his bag. Do you really want a fourth problem in the division? Or a third if you're speaking from the Rams perspective? I'm not too sure. While all four teams are able to get into the playoffs, not all of them are going to. You're not going to have four teams from one division get in unless they all have a remarkable year. What happens is they eat each other up in divisional play. And for a team like the Rams who has to play Shanahan twice and McDonald twice, the last thing you needed was a coach who knows your organization inside and out to face you twice a year. However, if there's any team that knows how to deal with former coaches coming back to coach against them, it is, of course, the Los Angeles Rams. This has been Brock Vera for the Los Angeles Rams Insider Podcast. We'll catch y'all next time. Take care.